Hey there, Aries, happy new moon in Leo. Now, I always think that the new moons, when they're in the same element as our sign, that's really, really quite fortuitous. And so this is a very fiery and expansive new start for this next 2-week period. And of course, that's what I'm talking about here is how you can manage the planetary energies over the next 2 weeks. So it's from the new moon in Leo right the way through to the full moon in Aquarius on the 9th of August. Now, this is a pretty show-stopping one for you. And I say that really with some certainty, because Mars, your ruling planet, is lining up to not just one, but 3 alignments on the day of the full moon. To me, what this is implying is that there's a lot of things that you want to take action on. And around the time of the full moon, and of course, the full moon makes everything seem so much bigger and louder and more important than ever before. So I really do see you're coming into a massive moment in time, a massive moment of change. And so what I'm going to be answering, hopefully through this up to 20 minutes video is, what truth am I remembering beneath the noise? That's a question I'm going to put to you. What truth am I remembering beneath the noise? Because obviously there's so much noise out there. What part of me is returning softer, stronger, and wiser? And the last question, what have I been hiding from? And what happens when I stop? And I think if you can answer those 3 questions, you'll be streets ahead in understanding what's going on with your kind of soul's drive, your mission right now, your purpose in life. So let's see what's going on. Now, if you're new to this channel, my name's Louisa. Hi, welcome to Feel Good Astrology. If you've been here before, thanks for coming back. I appreciate that. So I'm just bringing up my slides now. And before I get cracking, as usual, I just want to say thank you to everybody that sponsors this channel and helps me out. I just really adore you. Thank you so much. So what I'm going to do then is just pace you through what this kind of energy looks like from new moon to full moon. I'm going to go through what this might look like on a diary. There's 3 really intense days there, and then finally share my findings through the 2 charts, the chart of the new moon and also the chart of the full moon. So let's go back. The new moon to full moon energy then. So we've got the new moon in Leo today. And really this time, you can see it's black. There's no light coming from it. This is a time when we need to dig deep and absolutely be prepared to bring forward what is lying inside us. This is our time where we are we only have ourselves to really work with. All of the outside influences are sort of almost cut off. It feels like we're in our own little cocoon. And I really like the time of the new moon because it's clean, it's clear, and it's a starting point for us to move forwards on. Now, I don't know if you've seen my new moon forecast for the actual sign of Leo. It's an all signs forecast. Gives you a really good sense of what's coming up. There's some very, very strong asteroids involved in that one. But one of the big themes about this, I think, is like us pulling up our socks and getting ready for a new identity and really getting ready for this feeling of, like we are daring ourselves to do something that we've maybe failed to do in the past. So I think this is quite a strong message. And then as we go through this this waxing moon phase where the moon appears to be getting bigger and bigger, and come up to the full moon on the 9th, what's happening is we're getting the return of light. And in the first week, that's really taking us on a journey where we're getting a little bit more intel from the outside world, but we're still largely working on our own intuition, on our own energies, and we're really gathering trust around us. Then around the first quarter, we always get a bit of a challenge to stand strong and really commit to the things that we're wanting to commit to. And then in this last week, as we're coming up to the full moon, as you light is coming back more and more and more. And I really see that this point in time is a time when we're really seeing the true magic of what we've been sowing. So for instance, if we've been hard at it, sowing little seeds, intentional seeds, and working with a sense of good faith, I really think that things go really quite nicely. And around the time of the full moon, we start to see little results coming in of our energies, how effective have our energies been. If we've not really been doing much, or we've been fractured everywhere and we've been doing lots of everything, around the time of the full moon, we often get a very chaotic response whereby we feel like everything is piling in on us and our shoulders, and it can be quite overwhelming. So we are definitely in a growth period. And then as we look through the diary layout of what's going on, you'll see we've got these 3 big days, and this is the day of the new moon, the day of the first quarter. This is exactly halfway through this waning phase. This is where there's as much dark as there is light. And then finally, at the time of the full moon, when we're in full illumination. And what you'll see here is that actually on the day of the new moon, the sun and the moon are in a trine to Saturn and Neptune. So the Saturn and Neptune energy, which right now is in the early degrees of Aries, your sign. So Saturn and Neptune are very, very strongly aspected. I'll sort of link this in as to what this means in a second. Halfway through this forecast period, Venus is making an exact square with Saturn and Neptune. So again, Saturn and Neptune are highlighted. And then on the 9th, Saturn and Neptune are highlighted all over the place. But most notably, your ruling planet, Mars, is exactly in opposition on the day of the full moon to both Saturn and Neptune. So Saturn and Neptune and what they mean to you as an Aries is really important. I can't stress that enough. Also, during this time, there's some other things that are going on. We've got 2 planet changes. So Venus is changing signs, going into the sign of Cancer on the 31st, and Mars into the sign of Libra. Mars is not very happy in the sign of Libra. He's in his detriment or fall. I can't remember which one it is, but he's really not powerful in the sign of Libra. However, he is making some very, very powerful connections, that's for sure. We've also got this sextile to Chiron from Venus, which I think is opening us up on our soul-led journey. It's really opening us up to notice gentle healing interactions. It might be that you just have a really sort of healing encounter with somebody that sets a ball rolling. I think that's really helpful. And then exactly the last thing that I really wanted to point out was just on Friday the 25th, just like the day after tomorrow, we've got the sun in an opposition to Pluto, and that is very strong. So anyway, let's have a look at what this might mean to you. So I've plotted this out. So this is a chart with an Aries focus. So we've got Aries in the first house spot here. And you can see where the new moon is in Leo. It's in a very sort of fun and frivolous place of your chart, very creative place, a place where, this is a fantastic time for you to start new projects and to get quite passionate. This is a brilliant time for it, in fact. All sorts of things to do with matters of the heart and your core intention are really emphasized and amplified at this time. I always think of this 5th house area as being a kind of a womb. It's very womb-like. And so, we create children from here, we conceive. Our grown-up children also show up in this part of the chart. Any new romance coming in is shown up at this part of the chart because, again, it's something you're creating from this very sort of private place. And of course, all of the things that you're working on that are really passionate, that you're really passionate about, everything that's creative, whether it's gardening, meditation, painting, reading, writing, singing, whatever. Whatever your creative endeavors are taking you, whatever is bringing you to greater passion is coming forwards. Now, this is a really big energy for you. Now, what I notice about it is it's exactly in opposition to Pluto. And of course, when Pluto is in opposition to anything, there's a bit of a control issue. Pluto is there really reminding us of where we want something to be, just like that. So, if you've got this goal as to where your creativity is going, and it has to be like this is what the outcome looks like. And you might find that outcome has been sort of determined to you or directed and controlled from outside sources. Pluto is often really revealing itself as an outer consciousness thing, something that we pick up in a generational field of awareness, and it comes in via our peers and sometimes our parents. But really, this is to me, what I'm seeing here is if we can let go of what we've been holding on to in terms of standards, in terms of how we might achieve, what we're passionate about. I think if you let go of that, it will happen just beautifully and spontaneously, and it will just unfold. And so really, when you're being strict about, oh, this is how it has to happen, almost like a bride on her wedding day. And I've been a bride on my wedding day, and I know that there were lots of things I didn't get my own way on. I really, and I'm quite laid back, so that's quite helpful. But if you think of the sort of typical bride on her wedding day that you might see on television, they are absolutely, it's their big day and there's so much pressure and everything has to go exactly according to plan. Well, it's that kind of control that is stopping you. It's dulling you from truly flowing, truly knowing how to create from a place of passion. And so my advice to you right from the get-go with this new moon in Leo is let go of those "it has to be like this," because it is holding you back. It is dulling your creative powers, and it's dulling the outcome. The best thing you can do is kind of ride high and just go, just give life all of you, like give it your best shot, work in a place of low expectation but high passion and see what comes from it. Now, Mars, your ruling planet, he is working in the 6th house, right the way through to the 6th of August. And during that time, that should be really quite helpful because, Mars is super active. And the 6th house has to do with how you're organizing your life, how you're fitting everything in, your appetite for work and play and getting things all sorted. It also shows how you manage your money, how you manage your health. It's also quite helpful, in terms of health. You could get down the gym. It's almost like you've got some energy to burn off. So I do think you're going to get quite a lot done during this particular, first sort of, just over 10 days. Actually, it's almost, so 11 days. So or so from the new moon. So I think you're going to get a lot done. One of the things about this new moon is Mars's position to the south node here, I think, is reminding you of all the great things that you've done, but also reminding you of probably some of the failures as well that have happened. So I think performance is a really strong issue for you, in particular, like performance and managing your life so it goes well. I don't think maybe you've got the handle on that. And of course, now you've got Saturn and Neptune in your 1st house in such an important place of your identity, and how you're seen and, what's motivating you and where you want your personality to drive you through life. There's a lot of changes going on. So I really think Mars here it's important to get things up straight as soon as you can, because I really do think after this full moon on the 9th, when Mars is right here. And again, this could be an indication of you meeting somebody, by the way, with the new moon here and Mars, your ruling planet, in the 7th house, that could definitely bring some people in. But what you might also find is you've got very motivated people around you right now, and you've got motivated people who are tasking you to do something really quite athletic or quite brave or quite courageous. And so I think the more you can sort out in your day-to-day life and get it kind of tidied up, the more time you're going to have after the full moon. I think this is going to be helpful. So that's just a food for thought. At the time of the new moon, this lovely trine is superb. Saturn and Neptune. I don't know how you've already changed since the end of March and then the end of May, when both Neptune and Saturn came into your sign. But it's profound. Saturn is absolutely bringing in this sense of possibly world weary energy, where you think, oh my God, the things I do, and, you're trying to bulletproof your life maybe and get your structures a little bit more aligned to where you want to be, and with Neptune, which is such a spiritual planet, but also a planet that can really bullshit us a lot, because it's quite ideological and it's quite sort of through the veils and it's very sort of nondescript, but it's high vibe. It can definitely be high vibe and stay high vibe. But, Neptune really does bring in a lot of dreams, like really, really strong, vivid dreams. And so I think, since this spring, I think you've probably been really feeling into a time of great creativity and a time of needing to get everything really stabilized for yourself. And this new moon, I really see, is giving you an opportunity to do just that. So staying on this theme of Saturn and Neptune and how this new moon is helping you to recreate yourself and to bring in a new sense of your persona according to how you've been changing since spring. We've also got Venus going into a square with Neptune and Saturn. And you can't see it on this chart, and you can't see it on the other chart 2 weeks later because Venus has actually moved quite a lot. But midway through, around the 1st, Venus is right here, and she is in a square to Saturn and Neptune. Now, to me, Venus and Saturn, when they're in a difficult energy, like a square or an opposition, they really bring up a lack of joy and a lack of trust in what you can achieve. It brings in a sense of doubt to your manifestation abilities. It brings in a sense of not good enough. It really does bring in a sense of not good enough. And Venus is also going to be in that square with Neptune as well. And this is quite a hard energy to understand, because Neptune's a real dreamer, and Venus is always is definitely about flow. And yet it just feels like there's this disconnect. So, you might find around that time that you're feeling a little bit confused, from what you've started and you're getting off to a good start with, midway in this like a week in from the new moon and before the full moon. It just feels like there's this moment of doubt. My advice here is really try not to doubt yourself, because what's about to occur is a huge sense of change and most likely release. So if we have a look, Venus is working also through this T-square with the nodes, really also sort of hinting at an unresolved issue, a matter of the heart, a feeling, where your flow, your connection to somebody else didn't work very well. And so it can bring up a lot of doubt in yourself. And it's really important not to harbor that. As we come up to the full moon in Aquarius, by this time, your ruling planet Mars has gone into the 7th house, really, I think, waking you up to do a lot more and making you want to do a lot more with your partners. It just feels like everything is just like the dial of dynamic has been turned right up. Now, you might experience this opposition to Saturn and also this opposition to Neptune as a threat to your individuality. It might feel that there are people that are really challenging you and saying, no, I see the changes you're trying to do, but they're not for me. And yes, that definitely could happen, because I think the energy of the changes you're going through is really obvious to the people around you, and they might feel like they're losing you, and so they may well be up in arms. However, this could also be the sort of energy that a really good coach gives you, where they're sort of saying, look, come on, pull your socks up, you can do this, almost like a boot camp. So actually, I do think this full moon in Aquarius, if you know not to take the I'm not good enough too seriously, if you know to keep yourself focused and to see which direction you're going in, if you can maintain your confidence, I really think you're going to be attracting that sort of coach-like energy into your world, where there's somebody who's actually going to trust the situation enough to give you a bit of a hard time. So yeah, I see this full moon is actually kind of bringing out the best in you. To me, it just feels like a bit like a challenge. Now, there's other things that are going on at the time of this full moon. There's also a T-square between Pluto and Mercury. They're in opposition, and they're both in a square to Chiron. Now, this Pluto-Chiron square has been going on a long, long time. And to me, it's really showing where your hurts can't get released, like your insecurities, the wounds from your past. They're not healing very easily. And one of the reasons why, and this is Pluto sort of showing us what's going on, anywhere, and I mentioned this right at the start, anywhere where you're holding on to this idea of your life and it has to happen like this, because if it doesn't happen like this, it's not going to be worth living. To me, that's it's limiting not only your ability to be creative, which I said right at the start, it's limiting how you recreate yourself, but it's also limiting your ability to see what's going on with your insecurities. It's stopping you from being able to see possibilities and space and routes to grow beyond your problems. And so I really see that this is a bit of a pain in the backside. If you recognize this, if you do realize that there is this kind of triggering that goes on for you, especially if it's happening kind of a couple of times a month, most likely when the moon goes over here and when the moon goes over here, it's kind of re-triggered and reanimated. But to me, there is this old wound that is begging to be released. And all you need to do is to just it's not give up. Like, give up sounds like such a kind of failure. It's not giving up, it's surrender, which I think is very, very different to giving up. I know technically they have the same sounds, but surrender, I think, is an act of grace. It's an act of realizing you're in a fight that you're not really meant to be in. To me, it's suggesting that you have the wisdom to put your own sanity first, rather than a situation that there's not much you can do about. I often find with these Pluto-based issues that when we kind of surrender to ourselves and let this control mechanism we've got playing out, when we let that die and we accept, maybe life has got something much better for me that I can't quite see right now because I'm so tightly blinkered. When that happens, I often find that life brings in something really fresh and really new that actually is definitely you, but you just couldn't see it before. And so I really think that's also coming in at the time of this full moon. And Mercury is here to make it just that little bit stronger. Mercury retrograde is getting you to really rethink a lot of things about what it is you're trying to create into the world. It's really giving you a lot of food for thought. In particular, I think confidence is a big key. So if I just go back to here, where I was saying, Mars in the South Node is hinting at a performance anxiety and this reflection on your performance. And then, as we're moving to this full moon, anything that you haven't really faced, I think is really coming up again. So if I come to these questions that I said I'd answer by the end of this, what truth am I remembering beneath the noise? It's interesting, actually. I think the truth that you're remembering is that you are really ready for a change, and that you've been calling out for a change for a long time. There's been a part of you that's wanted to move forwards with a lot more dynamics, with a lot greater confidence, with a lot greater authority. And, Saturn and Neptune are coming in here to show you how you can do it with a sense of grace and also spirituality, so there is this change going on, and I think there's a lot of world noise right now, but I think the truth that is worth remembering is that you have been asking for change. Like that little voice in the back of your head has been wanting more, has been wanting a slightly different outcome, has been wanting the freedom from where you felt trapped. And so I think that's important to recognize. There's a part of you that has been asking for this. And then the next question, what part of me is returning stronger, softer, and wiser? Well, I think this is, I think there's a few things going on here. So this is a really beautiful aspect. In fact, this is the bit that I think is returning, is your sense of faith and your sense of majesty, and your sense of trust. It's not necessarily something that I would ascribe to the Aries personality. Self-trust, yes, but trust in other people, not so much, because they're so magnificent. You're so magnificent. You get things done. You want something, you do it, and it's done. Why would you rely on anyone else? But actually, the part of you that's returning is possibly that part of you that did need looking after when you were young, that part of you that maybe needed to share within a family setting, that needed to sort of interact with others, where your safety and security was definitely tied into the safety and security of other people. This gorgeous applying Venus and Jupiter conjunction in a trine to the North Node is reminding you of some of those tender moments, and I think that is helping you. So to me, there's this grounding at home that is coming up to remind you, to like what is actually asking you to return to your inner trust, like trust in other people, not just yourself. And then the third question, where have I been hiding and what happens when I stop? Oh, that's such a good question, isn't it? Okay, so one of the places I think that you might have been hiding in is down here, in the sign of Gemini, in this sort of community part of your chart. I think you've been hiding your need to be a little bit different. I think Aries can be actually quite social. I know lots of Aries who, yes, they get things done for themselves, but they can be part of like sports groups and different groups that kind of are doing sort of activities and things. And you can really blend in these groups, when you're working with other similar types that are kind of high achievers and straightforward people who say they're going to do something, then they do it and they get the job done. I think it's very easy to get hidden in a crowd of high achievers. And actually what I see here, Uranus is coming, is already in the third house. It's going to be coming back into the second, but it will be in the third house for a really long time, from like permanently from April. And so really what's coming up, what have you been hiding about yourself, is your gifts, the things that make you special, the things that make you different, the things that maybe you don't really tell people about yourself because, there's no need. I think there's going to be a reveal of the more sort of magical side of you, the more mysterious side of you, the more eclectic, the more funky, the more opinionated, maybe the more risky, the more daring side of you is likely to come out. And when that happens, I think things will speed up, things will come into their own pattern, and all the things that you're trying to manifest will, I think, will come in much, much easier because you really are being yourself. And so all of these questions in this time frame, I just think you are coming back into yourself, and whatever it was that you tried to do in the past that didn't quite work out as it intended, as you intended, I think if you've got the courage to try again, I think you'll get there. So I'm going to leave that there. Now, if you wanted to hear a little bit more about what's going on for you for love and money, I've got a little free taster. So if you carry on watching and click on the video, I'll take you straight there.